Okay. The next one is my Hitchcock, and if you're paying attention alphabetically, you probably already know which one it is. Psycho is the one for me. Now, it's not my favorite Hitchcock film. North by Northwest is my favorite Hitchcock film, but I think this one is just, again, we're 50 years later, and it's still got the same impact that it would have had to an audience. And again, seeing it at the cinema really reminds you of that. Seeing it with an audience, a lot of whom had not seen it before. And I think it's one of the best looking black and white films ever.
Yeah, I think it's generally agreed that film was a watershed movie. I mean, it is the beginning of the slasher horror movie. And nobody had seen quite that degree of. Today, it doesn't seem like that big a deal of a violence, but it's the way the film is shot and edited. But it just seems so horrifically violent, and so it actually had an impact on the whole economy of Hollywood. So.
Yeah, and that's why, And really that one is there because of the cultural relevance. This was the second to last film I put on there. I looked at my list this morning. I realized I don't have any Hitchcock on there. That doesn't seem right. So I went back and put some Hitchcock on there.
Do you have a musical on your list, Andy?
I do not. I really love musicals. In fact, I don't know if...
Only one musical ranked very... let's see, Singing in the Rain came in number 20 on the BFI list. Yeah.
I did have the only sort of musical, it's not really a musical, the only music film I had on my sort of pre-list was Hard Day's Night. And that was very close to making it.
I have a musical on my list.
Really? That's
idea.
Interesting.
And that will surprise you, Andy, because I do not like musicals. And I fought this one so much, even up to the very last minute. It's a movie called Seven Brides for Seven Brothers.
Oh, it's a good film, yeah.
It's a wonderful movie. And I think about the movie, it just puts a smile on my face. Yeah. And it's such a... the story is so just out there, but it works. It's just so hilarious. Basically, you've got these seven brothers. One of them gets married. His wife basically... gets all of this guy's brothers into, proper, gentlemen.
They're very, very crude country
They're very
guys,
crude,
yeah.
And they, go into town. They see these ladies who all got gentlemen, sort of that they're, being courted with, and they decide we're going to take these ladies through this pass that is going to have an avalanche, so that we can basically hold them captive for an entire winter and make them love us.
It's actually based on a legend of the Sabine women.
Yeah.
Do you know? It's the rape of the Sabines has been painted and all that. So the kidnapping of these women.
And so basically they have all the townspeople.
They're called the Sabine women. In this.
And the townspeople have to wait an entire winter, and during this time, antics ensue and hilarity goes by, and the women eventually grow to love these men,
and the choreography is great.
Oh, it's brilliant.
So it's got a message, is what you're saying.
It's got a message. It's a message film, and there's
it's clean up your act. That's
there's a multiple shotgun wedding at the end, which I've never seen in any other movie.
Wow,
it's brilliant. It's
I have to see that.
It's such a fun movie, and it's again another one of those that my mom watched it all the time, and I always sort of saw it in chunks, and then I sat down and watched it not too long ago, and I thought, okay. Like, this is my musical. Like, I get one, like, and this is it. But normally I despise musicals. But this one, like I said, every time I think about it, it puts a smile on my face. So it had to make my list.
Yeah.
Well, I had to put a Wells movie on my list. But again, perversely, I'm not going to do Citizen Kane. I'm tired of it being, it's a great movie, but I'm tired of it being saddled with that reputation. So I picked Touch of Evil. I could have picked any of 4 films. In fact, 4 of his films did make it on the list. So anyway,
yeah, I think Touch of Evil is a great choice. I mean, I think James Poska was on the show and he said something about Citizen Kane, that like Citizen Kane is like eating your vegetables, but like something. I don't remember what the other movie we were talking about was, but I think Touch of Evil is definitely like that sort of like the cool people know that Touch of Evil is the really good Orson Welles movie. I mean, there's a lot of really good Orson Welles movies, but that's like your calling card. Like, oh, I know about Touch of Evil. But
was it Third Man that we were talking about?
I think it was.
He didn't direct that. He just
he was in it, but I think that's what.
But he steals the movie.
Yeah. The next one on my list is another foreign film. I've got 2 foreign films on my list, Exterminating Angel and this one, Seven Samurai. which I think is the singular greatest film ever made. That's for me. That's the ultimate. Kurosawa, 1954. And the story is part of what makes it so amazing. I mean, it's an original story, and it's been redone in various forms dozens of times. Referenced and just cut whole cloth.
The Magnificent Seven.
Magnificent
It's a
Seven.
pretty good movie.
Yeah, there's been books that have used this sort of story, but yeah, I mean, and again, got to see it at the cinema, and loved every second of it. 3.5 hours long. I don't watch it as often as as I might if it were a bit shorter, but I still end up throwing it in the DVD player, the Blu-ray player now every couple of years.
It's great on the big screen.
Yeah, yeah.
Mine is my more recent film from 2 years back,
Okay.
Social Network.
All right, I can see that.
The main reason why I put this on there is because I think culturally it's relevant, and I think years from now it'll also still be culturally relevant. And also, it's a wonderful movie.
Yeah, it's an exceptional film.
Fascinating movie. I think outside of 2 other movies, I've seen this movie more than any other movie except for those other 2 other movies, and one of them is obviously Top Gun, which is not on my list.
Yeah, yeah, and I think the thing about Social Network that hits me is that every single thing comes together. The acting, the directing, the music.
The music is
brilliant. Makes this film. So many things about this film just make it work.
Yeah,
it's every single level. The script is exceptional. But the story, I mean, you boil it down, the story, it's a very simple theme. It's a betrayal thing.
It's betrayal.
Right, yeah, but I agree. I think it's a very good film. There's obviously a topical fascination with that film, but it shouldn't be as fascinating as it is. I don't know how to explain it. It's mainly people sitting around talking about computers and frat jealousies and forming a company. And
that's
the
thing that it works.
And yet it brings you in.
At that deeper level. They got everything right underneath so that you can just put this framework of like, well, this is the company and this is the thing. And
And I think out of all the movies I've listed, I think that one could easily be replaced by sort of my notables that I was coming up with. But I thought to myself, no, I've obviously watched this movie this many times for this particular reason, and it's you put it right in perspective for me because I couldn't understand why, but I think that's it. I think it's such a basic story, but when it comes down to it, it's just fascinating to watch. You just get sucked in, and then by the time it's over, you're like, oh, it's over? Like 2 hours of my life are gone? Okay, let's watch it again. Just every time it just sucks me in, and I love it. And like I said, I think years from now, it will be on more and more people's lists just because it's such a impeccable movie in terms of capturing a snapshot of the culture. So there you go.
Well, my next choice is my comedy, and I would never make a 10 best list without putting this film on it. There's just no question. Got to be there. And I don't even think it may have wound up somewhere way down at the bottom of these things, but it's Trouble in Paradise, Ernst Lubitsch, 1932. I don't know if you've seen this film.
Yes,
I have.
Yes.
A lot of people don't like this particular kind of thing. It's a kind of witty comedy of manners, a satire. I just find it ineffably light, smart, satiric, funny. I love it.
Well, this actually was very highly ranked, actually.
Did it get up?
117th in the critics' poll.
117th, okay.
Yeah. And I think this is the one that most people would vote for as a Lubitsch film. I also voted for a Lubitsch film, not that one.
Chop Around the Corner also wound up on that list, I think.
Yeah.
But you got on your top 10, you got a
No,
Lubitsch?
I've got a Lubitsch. I don't have that one, though.
No, but you have a Lubitsch?
I have a Lubitsch, yes.
Hey, I'm
Yes.
looking forward to that.
Yeah. So everyone actually there actually are a few Lubitsch films that could fit in the last part of the alphabet there, but we'll see. We'll see how that turns out.
By the way, I think it's fascinating that none of us have the same movies on our list.
Yeah, not a single.
That just
duplicate.
proves how sort of wildly scattered this whole thing is.
Yeah. I'm actually really curious. I'm looking up. Social Network does show up here. It actually 3 people voted for it. So yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So yeah. Actually, this person might be your soulmate, Jason, because they also voted for 39 Steps.
Who is this?
This is Jane Lamacraft.
I'm going to send her an email.
Yes, yes.
That's awesome.
Yes. Okay, so the next one on my list is, and this is my 9th on the list, so we're getting close to the end of these lists. The next one on my list is the other one James Pasca was talking about when we were talking about that, The Third Man.
Yep.
This is, again, if I list my top 5 films, then Seven Samurai is first, and Third Man's probably second or third. Again, just like
Good old black and white.
yeah, essentially a perfect film, and with such disparate parts. Orson Welles comes in. He's not directing it, but I mean, the legend is he sort of wrote a lot of his own dialogue, and I totally believe
No,
it.
he just wrote that one great speech about the cuckoo clock.
So the only part of the film that most people remember
Yeah.
is the thing he wrote. Of course he did. And so I sort of count this as my Welles film. I don't have a Welles directed film, but this is what I count as my Welles film. This also contains what I think is, if not the greatest, then the second. I think this one is the greatest reveal of all time when they reveal Welles for the first time.
That's what
It's
James was
just
talking about.
So involved and so precise, and it deals with information from like 20 minutes earlier in the film. So you can, like, if you're paying attention, you pick up on it and you realize what's about to happen, and then it just happens. And
Wells described it as the Mr. Wu principle. He said there was this old play that used to be where in the first act everybody boiled around the stage and said, "Wait till Mr. Wu gets here. He'll figure out this thing, and all these things are happening." And then toward the end of the act, there's this gong sounds, and some tiny figure starts coming toward us over a bridge, and then the curtain goes down. And he said that's a star part, and that's sort of what happens in The Third Man. Everybody talks about him, and then kerbam, when he shows up, it's a great.
Amazing.
9th on my list is a Bergman film. I had to put one on there, The Virgin Spring. It's a really fascinating
Persona?
movie. I have, and that's what I fought with between that and this one. This one just had a much bigger impact on me, I think. I'd always heard of Persona over the years. I'd never even remotely heard of The Virgin Spring. Came out in 1960. Does not feel like it's a 1960s movie, at least in terms of the way it looks, the way it's shot. It's black and white. Feels much older. And basically, it's based on I think it's the most loosely sort of adaptation. It's based on a ballad. It's a song. I looked it up, and I was familiar with it a little bit. Just my background. And I don't have a lot I can say about it. I think it's just definitely worth seeing and just beautifully shot, and has a really, really great payoff at the end, especially if you're familiar with the story that it's based on. Basically, a father finds his daughter after she's been raped and killed. And then the story goes from there, where he has an encounter with the guys that did it, and then your payoff goes from there. And it's just, I feel like it's been used a couple of times in sort of other movies, but this one is just so basic and just to the point that it works. And I really, really like it. And it's just a beautifully shot film. There's a lot of really nice shots that Bergman definitely just lets things play out. And I'm watching more and more Bergman, and it's like, okay, yep, that's a good one. Okay, this is a good one. I've never been disappointed so far. So I had to put one on the list, and when I think of Bergman, this is the movie I think of. So highly recommend it.
I felt. I hope I'm not sort of ghettoizing, but I wanted to have to represent a woman or women on the list, and I pretty much knew that an easy choice would be Chantal Akerman's movie Jeanne Dielman, which is widely respected by critics and feminists and so forth, and it did wind up pretty high on the list here. I think it was the highest rated one by a woman. A couple of other women you would expect to be on here, Agnes Varda. But I had seen Betty Gordon's film Variety here at the cinema when she visited the cinema, and I had not seen it before. It was on the big screen. And I think we may have even talked about this. It's a film that's it's like a female Vertigo, and that made it all the more interesting for me to put it on the list.
Interesting.
And it's kind of an avant-garde, low-budget film shot in New York. She came along about the same time as Jim Jarmusch, and I think actually they kind of worked together right at the beginning. So Variety, it's called, and Betty Gordon, 1983.
All right. Okay, so this is the last one, and this is my Lubitsch film. Any guesses?
Not The Shop Around the Corner.
No?
No.
To Be or Not to Be?
Oh, To Be or Not to Be. I almost mentioned that one.
Yeah. The reason I picked this one over Shop Around the Corner, which I think is amazing, or Trouble in Paradise, which I think is equally good, I've been watching a ton of Lubitsch movies lately. When Peter Bogdanovich was here, I had read his book, and he talked about how, this was one of the directors he really wanted to talk to in his director's book. But it just, Lubitsch died in like the 50s. And so he just reeled off like 20 different movies of like, here's some Lubitsch movies you should watch. And I was like, this is insane. So I started with Trouble in Paradise, and I've seen 5 or 6 since then. Design for Living and Shop Around the Corner, and I've been devouring these. Even some of like his older, like early
he was a
musicals.
silent director in Germany.
Yeah. And I watched The Love Parade, which is an amazing movie.
I love that one. I like all those early musicals he did.
Yeah. But this one, I put this one on the list because, again, I wanted to represent comedy, and I think this is hands down the funniest Lubitsch movie I've seen. Just pure, flat-out laughs every second.
Have you seen Heaven Can Wait?
Yes. I don't like that one, actually.
Okay, I just wondered. I was just curious. Yeah.
I was annoyed by that one because it starts out with this framing device of like, hey, you're in hell, and you've got to talk your way out of it, and then for hour and a half we're away, and then we come back at the very, very end. It's like, well, did I do it? And it's like, what? why did you need to do that?
No. Well, we'll discuss that later. We don't want to spend too much time on it. I think you're reading it wrong, but go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
But To Be or Not to Be is about here's the other great thing about To Be or Not to Be. It was made like pre-Pearl Harbor, released after Pearl Harbor. So from what I understand, it completely bombed. Like no one watched this movie because before it was like, oh, those Nazis, they're so funny, ha ha ha, and then all of a sudden it was like real, and people had to deal with it. But what's amazing about this, it's about a theater troupe, and they're in Poland, I think, and they're doing a play about the Nazis, and then the Nazis invade. And so they're also sort of connected with this underground resistance movement, and they find out that this particular Nazi colonel, general, captain, whatever, is in town, and he's going to find out who the leader of the resistance movement is and infiltrate it. And so what they do is they take all their costumes and put on a show for the captain to convince him that there's a higher-ranking Nazi officer here. And it's just amazing. It's so amazing. There's a remake of it. Mel Brooks did a remake of it.
Very good.
Yeah, I can't imagine. But just a brilliant film and so funny. Rivals most of the comedies that have come out in the last 10 years.
Jack Benny plays the Ham actor, and he's doing Hamlet, I guess. And somebody is it the famous lines? And this is regarded as a really what he did to Hamlet is what the Nazis did to Poland.
Yes. But anyways, that's my Lubitsch film on my list.
Okay. My last film is one I've mentioned before. It's my favorite movie of all time. It's Wonder Boys from 2000.
Yeah.
It's a very underappreciated Curtis Hanson film. I think it's better than the novel that it's based on. And I think it is. Michael Douglas has made a lot of fine movies. This is his best role he's ever done. He just knocks it out of the park. The cast is
I also
great.
like Robert Downey Jr.
Robert Downey Jr. is hilarious. Tobey Maguire's in it. Frances McDormand is in it. Katie Holmes is in it, and she's good. It's like something's going right here. Rip Torn is in it. He's hilarious. He's got a little bit of a role in there. But I spoke about it, before. You can listen to the previous podcasts about it. But this will always be number one until, I can't say that, I guess. There's other movies coming in my future, I'm sure, but it just does it for me.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful movie.
Yeah.
And everyone should see it.
I picked Wanda by Barbara Loden, and this one I think I would have had on my list anyway, regardless, women, whatever. Wanda is I don't know how to explain it, a sort of anti-Bonnie and Clyde, a very low-budget film. It's the only film that Barbara Loden made. She was the wife of Elia Kazan. Mm-hmm. This is a better movie than Elia Kazan ever thought about. And 1971, Wanda.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I think now, Jason, I have to bring this up because every single person who I've said, this is what we're doing, has asked me about this particular movie in reference to you. You resisted the urge to put Top Gun on this list.
I did. And
gee, that would be like a Zizek choice.
I can't. I just couldn't argue it. I could argue it, but the person would leave the room by the time I got to the point.
Yeah,
it is a fascinating movie. It's an iconic cultural movie, but there are plenty of other movies that I think people deserve to see. And that's the thing too. It's like that I kind of went. Obviously I have a few movies that a lot of people saw, like Gone with the Wind. Everyone's seen Gone with the Wind. Yeah. But I tried to pick some movies that maybe people don't know about, and even
Tony Scott died recently. I thought he was kind of underrated in relation to his brother.
He really was, and Tony Scott, probably my favorite director of any director of any movie I've ever seen. So and I will note that I did have some honorable mentions, and a lot of David Fincher movies did make that list. I think in particular, Curious Case of Benjamin Button is a really solid movie. It didn't play well for me the first time I saw it, but definitely worth seeing. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, other movies like Fight Club and Seven. I think time will tell. Yeah. I find them fascinating, but I think I saw them at the right place, right time. Yeah. But that's what I fought with.
Again, if you're looking for like the cool Fincher movie to put on, I think it would be The Game, which Criterion just came out with a Blu-ray, and I haven't gotten it yet, but I'm definitely going to grab it very soon.
Another good role from Michael Douglas. Yeah. But not as good as Wonder Boys.
Preposterous conclusion, but...
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. I want to throw out a few regrets. Okay. Films that I didn't get to put on the list for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. I did not put any Wes Anderson on my list. Wes Anderson's my favorite current filmmaker. I feel like I could have thrown some Wes Anderson on here, but not in the face of everything else on here. I really wanted to put some animation on my list. I probably would have gone with a Miyazaki, maybe Spirited Away or something like that. Mm-hmm. It was on my sort of longer list, but I did not put that on there. I mentioned A Hard Day's Night. I really, really wanted to put that on there because I felt like, again, changed the way people thought about what you could do with film. Another one that I saw for the first time at the cinema, Last Picture Show, was one that was very close to getting on my list. When
you came up with that idea and you planted it in my head, that was one that came to mind. Yeah. That and Midnight Cowboy. I was fighting between both of those, and I think they canceled each other out in my head.
Yeah. And then I think the only other one that I really would have – I wanted to avoid putting two of the same director on my list, but I really would have liked to put The Killing, the Kubrick film, on my list. And the only other one that I really, really struggled with – I didn't really struggle with it because I thought about it and sort of let it go pretty quickly – was Wizard of Oz, which, again, I think is one of those, like Gone with the Wind and Casablanca, is one that's just so ingrained in the culture that you just can't get away from it. But yeah.
Well, you spoke of Kubrick. I also had 2001, which made the longer list, I think, did it not?
No, it's in the top 10.
Oh, it's in the top 10. That's right. Okay. We've been talking about so many movies. It was like my brain's fried. And then The Shining. I always return to that movie. I don't know why. I always feel like there's just something about that movie that...
I think about 5 Kubrick movies made the list.
Yeah, I wouldn't be
so it's pretty amazing.
I wouldn't be surprised, but again, what's so interesting about The Shining? It's another adaptation. Stephen King. It's just like, I must,
Well, most of what Kubrick did was...
Yeah, they were, but I just think it's funny that they're just like... I don't like. I was like, "Oh, we're at a theme. Sweet, go with it," and I did. So, and like I said, there's, ask me on a particular day. Some of these movies may not be in my list.
Yeah.
But
well, and if I had sort of set up that initial idea of what I wanted my list to be, this would have been a totally different list. If I would have gone with your idea of like, I want to pick films that like people might not be as familiar with, it would have been a totally different list. But,
I got a backup here. I'm just going to list it fast for you. O Hazard Balthazar by 1966, Robert Bresson. Bresson is a unique and tremendously important director. This is a movie about a donkey, and it's one of the most moving films I've ever seen, emotionally moving. And my Stanley Kubrick film was Barry Lyndon. It's my favorite Kubrick film,
That's a good one.
1975. My recent film, Colossal Youth by Pedro Costa, was shown here at the cinema, 2007. And Max O'Fools. I really regretted having him off of my initial list, and I love a movie called Letter from an Unknown Woman, 1948. I was pleased to see that Guy Madden voted for it on here. And I used to tell my students, if you don't like this movie, we can never be intimate friends. Anyway, and then I tried to get a Latin American film because there were no Latin American films. Everything was so Eurocentric. And I thought, well, suppose I had to put a Latin American film on here. And this one is very, very little known. It's a silent film called Limite, 1930 by Mario Pixotu. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing his name right. It's a silent film about two people on a boat or a raft, and the movie then is told in flashback. And it's kind of an avant-garde film, a great film.
So Buñuel is Spanish, or is he?
That's right. He's Spanish.
Okay.
He worked in Mexico for a while.
Yeah.
So Los Olvidados, you could have claimed to be a Mexican film, but it's Buñuel.
Yeah.
Psycho. I put that. I had to have another Hitchcock. Rules of the Game.
Oh yeah.
Buster Keaton, Sherlock Jr.
Yeah.
And Ugetsu, Kenji Mitsuguchi's film. Have you ever seen that film?
I haven't seen that one.
It's a great one. It's 1953.
I may have. I just not ringing a bell.
And Jean Vigo, the great. He only made about 3 films. And died early. 1933, Zero for Conduct. It's about boys' school. It's a magical, strange, unusual film.
Gotcha.
Absolutely unique.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right. Well, I think that'll do it. Are you emotionally exhausted, Jason?
No, I just feel like there's just so many movies out there that I need to watch.
Yeah.
I think that's what's so difficult about this list is we go and read all these other people's lists and you're just like, oh, there's so many movies that I have not seen.
How did they get that list?
Yeah.
Like, how did they figure out? How did they see that movie, and how did it impact them? And yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking.
I'd just say one short thing. It's interesting to me that Vertigo won. And I think you could argue, I wouldn't necessarily, Vertigo wouldn't be my top choice, but I think you could argue that Hitchcock has become the most important movie director in history. And he is a movie maker who you can show to students today, and they still enjoy watching it.
Yeah.
He is both an artist and a popular filmmaker. I mean, he bridges that guide. So anyway, and I think because a lot of more academics were asked to vote this time, that Hitchcock just is so part of the curriculum in movie courses. Yeah.
Well, and that thing you said about being an artist and a filmmaker, I think that's a template for a lot of filmmakers nowadays, and we've got a lot of those right now that are trying to do that. Scorsese, Fincher, Anderson, they're all trying to. Soderbergh. Soderbergh's the perfect example. He sort of like moves between. He moves between Hollywood and art pictures. He doesn't do them in the same.
He never tries to hit that middle very well.
Hitchcock is so amazing because he's so classical.
Yeah,
he's just it's pure invisible editing. It's just, but yet he transcends it somehow.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we'll get out of here. Jim, thanks so much for coming back on the show. It's always great to have you on.
We went too long, didn't we?
Oh no, not at all. Not for our 100th episode. The viewers will forgive us.
We can allow the room.
Yeah. So thank you so much for sharing this experience with us.
Really
we really enjoyed doing this. So, congrats on 100, Jason.
It's been great.
Yes.
Here's to another 100.
Yes, another 100.
Maybe in the next 10 years, Chaplin will get more votes than he did this time.
Yeah.
It's amazing, Chaplin and Eisenstein, who were on there initially.
Yeah.
How far the mighty have fallen.
I guess I can understand Eisenstein because his films aren't really as part of the zeitgeist of the culture. But Chaplin surprises me because he's still so ingrained. Maybe people just forget that it is Chaplin, or they don't pick out specific films. They just think of it as a whole.
I think 3 of his films got mentioned, but anyway.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll get out of here. So thank you guys for listening. I'm Andy.
And I'm Jason.
This has been, and always will be, A Place for Film. A Place for Film is recorded at WFIU Studios in Bloomington, Indiana.